Well, this is probably not going to be a super long video because I didn't take a ton of footage of this, but I want to talk at least briefly about hazelnuts because they're a plant that I have started working with over the past few years that I'm really excited about. And I'm working with hybrid and with wild hazelnuts, wild American hazelnuts. This what we're looking at right here is pure wild American hazelnuts. And like I said, really, really wonderful plant to be playing with, to have in the garden, the nursery, the food forest, landscape, whatever. Mind you're picking the nuts. And you can see I'm picking some of these when the husks are still kind of green, and I haven't been doing this for many years, so I still have a lot to learn. But the way that I've been taught is that you want to kind of pry that husk open a little bit. Check out this green snake, and you want to see if the nut inside starts to wiggle while it's still in the husk. If you can move the nut independently, it's kind of tough to describe that. You might be able to see better here. You can see how that nut inside, it can move freely like that. That's when they're totally ready. And it's a little bit of a game because animals of all sort love hazelnuts. And so you do have to try to get there first before the animals if you want to actually pick some. You can sometimes pick them when they're slightly underripe and let them ripen off the plant, but you don't want to pick them too early because then they won't ripen up. So that's something you have to play around with a lot. And, the bigger the patch that you're able to find in the wild, or the bigger tree that you have, the more chance that you'll be able to get some before the wildlife. And you definitely want to leave some. You don't want to take all of it and be greedy. So anyway, I found a pretty good sized patch in my neighborhood, actually, just growing on somebody's land, a neighbor who I know, and it's basically growing under some power lines, an area that's, somewhat regularly mowed, and so the hazelnuts are able to survive in those conditions, getting mowed every, 3, 5, 10 years, whatever, and they sprout back up. And they form pretty dense thickets, and although I certainly collected enough to where I could have eaten a bunch of these nuts if I wanted to, I nibbled on a few. I mostly gathered these for sowing seed to grow in the nursery, to plant out and to offer to folks to buy wild American hazelnut. I figured these ones growing locally are going to be really well adapted to my conditions and are valuable to have in the gene swarm that I'm creating. Like I said, I'm also playing around with some hybrid hazelnuts I've gotten from various folks who've been doing breeding between American, European, and other hazelnut genetics to try to create a more viable food-producing hazelnut. The wild American hazelnut, they're very hardy and well adapted here, but the nut size ranges from rather small to rather large, and when it's on the smaller end of the spectrum, it's kind of a lot of work to get the nut out of the shell for such a small nut. Whereas, when the nuts are larger, it's very viable. I mean, there's American genetics that have nuts almost as large as the more cultivated nuts that you would find in the store. If you're not aware, most of the time when you're buying hazelnuts in any product or raw at the store, that's typically coming from European hazel genetics, which cannot be grown well on the East Coast due to various diseases which attack that specific species of hazelnut. So there's a lot of folks working on hybrids and developing a disease-resistant, basically a hybrid that has large nuts and can survive here very well on the East Coast and the Midwest. Hazelnut has a lot of potential to be a staple crop for a lot of people. You can make flour from it, oil from it. You can put the nuts in chocolates. You can eat the nuts. They're also really great windbreak plants. They're good at stabilizing slopes. They do really good in wet areas, but they can survive in dry. I mean, they're just an amazing plant. You can see all the seeds I got here. So if you have the ability to play with hazelnuts, I highly recommend it. They're fun. They respond well to coppicing, burning. And yeah, they're easy to propagate. Really wonderful plant. And there'll be more to talk about in future videos. I'm going to be planting out a lot more hazelnuts at my place this year, and so I'm sure I'll be talking about that and sharing the process. So that's it.